right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pixel Profiles episode 6 with the architect behind the RPG engine. I mean, honestly, I only know you by the architect, but hello,
Um,
welcome.
Thank you. Hi. My actual name is Eustace.
Eustace,
Super
okay.
German name, yeah, with a super British accent. But yeah, no, I go by the Architect. I just thought it'd be a fun name to go by.
Yeah, I mean, it works. I mean, hey, if you're the big brain behind something, I mean, you're literally the architect behind it. So it makes sense. It fits. Is it gaudy? A little bit, but
Bit, yeah.
we're gonna run with it. All right. Well, welcome. I always want to call it a show. It is kind of a show, but welcome to the stream. For those of you that don't know, uh, my brain completely stopped.
Go with the
Don't you
Architect.
just hate when that happens? Um, no, but Eustace is the mind behind the RPG engine. You'll be seeing periodically throughout the stream on chat. It will cycle through, telling you where you can pick up the RPG engine with the Steam link, as well as the website directly, the company website, as well as the socials for the RPG engine itself. So I like to start out these interviews basically the same way. So really, what got you started in game development? Like, where did you get your sort of like, this is what I want to do?
Okay, so, long story, but we have time.
Yes.
So I was but a wee little lad. No, basically, I had a really bad time back at school and got bullied a lot and didn't really make too many friends. So my escape was always video games. Started with the Orange Box, which had Portal and had
Oh,
the original Half-Life. Hey, they were good games.
yeah.
And I don't know, gaming's always just been something I've really enjoyed. Um, I wanted to be an engineer as a kid. I always liked building stuff, creating stuff like this, that little bit of creativity. Just you have something in your head, now you have it in real life. Haha, progress. So that always fascinated me. And I never made it into engineering school because by the end of doing like my whole kind of school path, I was just done. I was done with the teachers, I was done with the kids, I was done with everyone. So funnily enough, I ended up being a plumber for a hot sec, did a degree in plumbing, and hated it so much. I was like, I need to actually sort out my life and work out what I'm going to do. And
So you went from being tired of everybody's shit to dealing with everybody's shit.
literally, yes, correct, yeah, yeah. And it was as shitty as you imagine.
Oh,
So
I can imagine.
So I ended up on YouTube at one point watching a little animation of a rabbit running through a forest and tricking this other rabbit, and it was made in Blender. I think it was one of the old Blender promos of like, look what you can make in our software. So I had a bit of a Google and I was like, what's this Blender thing? Oh, it's free, it's 3D modeling, creativity, right?
Hmm.
And I just gelled with that. I sat down and I spent like every kind of evening, all weekends, I stopped gaming and I started into 3D modeling. And it took me about a month of doing that to realize, you know what, this is 1,000 times more fun than anything I've done before. That like I could see doing this as a career. So ended up going to university to do video game design, and turned up there full of passion, ready to go. And there was one of the first lectures I remember the teacher asking, "Who here is like keen to set up their own little company and like get a game going and just like excited about game development?" And me straight away, like little Hermione Granger, I was like, "Oh, pick me, pick me! I'm excited." And no one else was, and that really shocked me because I expected going into university, going, I'm going to go here. I'm going to meet a whole bunch of like-minded people who just want to make video games. And I went around asking people, and they all just had pretty much the same response: was, "What make games outside of what we have to do for uni? Why?" And just like, yeah. So that's how.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, so that was my experience with kind of university of video game design. But that kind of it kind of forced me to learn programming. So I started off as a 3D artist, and then I had all this art that I couldn't really do anything with without having a programmer. So I taught myself programming so that I could do something, combine my art and my programming.
Hmm.
So from there, I went to work with Peter Molyneux, which might say something to a couple of people. He's the name behind Fable. He's rather hated in the games industry because of his past actions, should we say. But he was my boss for a year, and throughout working there for a year, I made a lot of good connections. I learned a lot of things about like programming, especially really like helped me enhance my skill. And then after being there a year and realizing that all the work we did constantly got binned, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just do this myself? So I sat down with my parents and I went, hey guys, this is my passion. This is my kind of my dream job. The only way I could turn this into my own company is if you guys allow me, like, to live at yours rent free for a bit while I set this up. And then, I will move out or start paying rent the moment I can from making video games. And them being absolutely awesome people agreed to that. And they said, okay, you've got 1 year to make a video game and to show us that you're not just essentially sitting around doing nothing and actually working. And then COVID hit, and yeah, well, kind of everything got prolonged a little bit. But I made a handful of little prototypes. I met the engineer Osh through climbing. Osh helps me out with a lot of the really technical code side of things. The API stuff, the Steam integration, like anything that's really technical. I just call Osh up. I'm like, Osh, help please, and he does amazing work. And we made a handful of prototypes together. We made a little tower defense game. We tried to make an asteroid shooter game. We had one game on Android, which basically linked Spotify to the game you were. So it was a game where you could like move like a runner, where you had to go left and right. But the
Hmm.
speed of the whole game was based on the music you were listening to on Spotify. So
Oh, that's a cool
yeah,
idea. Yeah.
yeah. In idea, right? In theory, awesome idea. In practice, really boring. Like we
Oh,
just,
well.
yeah. Yeah. So we weren't quite there yet in terms of our technical ability, our knowledge of kind of what's fun, what's not fun. But all of these projects individually like taught me this new thing or taught us as a group of this new thing. And like we just taking all of these ideas and putting them together. And then one day I was sitting there. We were making a game called Asteroids, which was essentially meant to be a space version of War Thunder, where you could shoot the asteroids and then fly through them to kind of make this changing battlefield as the maps progress and that kind of stuff. And we gave up because we couldn't sync 30,000 asteroids perfectly between machines. Which,
Oh, okay, so
yeah.
it just wouldn't line up properly. So like
The asteroids need to be perfectly in sync, otherwise one player could see the other player while they had an asteroid in the way.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I forgot to mute my bot. I always forget to do that.
nice.
Alrighty.
Oh, I can see Mad Mike in the chat. What up, Mike? He's a good friend of mine. He's talking about programming now. He's learned programming, so
Oh,
super
that's
stoked on
cool.
that.
Nice.
Um,
Already inspiring the next generation of people. Look at you.
but yeah, no. So we were making that game, and it wasn't working out. We just couldn't get that synced, and it was like more than we could kind of bit off more than we could chew. Osh doing fantastically in his actual full time job. I'm the only one who does full time kind of game development in Polydemons at the moment. And so he had to go off and do that, and I was sat there going like, this game isn't working. My year is up and I still have nothing to show for it apart from a bunch of projects that haven't gone anywhere. So I was sitting down with Osh and my little brother Dan, and we're all saying like, oh, why don't we play some D&D, just take our mind off things, just play a campaign. I was going to host, be the GM, and I was like, absolutely, but I'm sick of using Roll20. So I started looking around at what other software was out there. I saw Tailspire. There was Dungeon Alchemist was available at that point as well. But for various reasons, I was just like, this isn't what I'm looking for. We have so much tech. We have such processing power, like the ability to create entire planets in games. Yet we're using 2D like things for VTTs mostly. Why is that? Surely we can do better. So I turned around to them, and they both rolled their eyes and went, "Oh yeah," and said, "Like I'll host a campaign when I've built a VTT." And we're now 2.5 years later. I have yet to to host the campaign, but I have built the VTT. So that's yeah. I feel like we've got a little bit like off track there. Not just game dev. That's how I got into the RPG engine.
Hey,
But that's how.
everything leads
Yeah,
into another thing. So yeah,
yeah.
it still works. It still works. Yeah. So when so you mentioned some of the challenges that you've kind of had to deal with when it comes to like game development. Outside of the syncing up issue that you had with asteroids, What are some of the bigger challenges that you faced when it comes to game development? Maybe not necessarily like the actual development itself, but if you feel like you've like run into anything that's caused you more issues than another, whether that could be like IRL or um, you know, obviously financially is going to be a big issue. But when it comes to um, yeah, what's one of some of the biggest challenges you've run into uh, overall with your development process?
So it's hard. I wouldn't call this a challenge so much as it makes things a lot harder. Is I have a very set opinion of how I think game developers should be interacting with their community and how they should be promoting their games. If I was a D&D character, I would be lawful good. Like I have a very strong set of morals that, as an avid gamer, I mean, I have thousands of hours in some games. Like I just feel that as a consumer of games, I know, or I feel I know, kind of like I have an expectation of developers and the way they should respond to like criticism, the way they should respond to feedback, and like we're all here to enjoy this product. And I think a lot of developers they chase the money and not the joy of their players. So it's been a bit of a I make it harder for myself by not doing things like hiring bots to kind of get into my Discord servers to bulk the numbers, by not creating like these huge fancy trailers that show something really cool, but that isn't even in the game. And it's made a huge struggle to market the game because it's always just said like, hey, this is exactly what we have. If you can see it, like all the trailers were made using the current like in-game that was released at the time
Yeah,
version of the game. And
I
that
can
just
attest to
means that
that. I was part of
right?
that. I yeah.
Yeah. And it's just it hasn't done well in terms of marketing. Our user base is actually fairly small. Um, so I mean, you can check statistics online publicly, but we've got like 150 players a day, which seems like a lot, but on the grand scale of things, that's like hardly anyone. We have, I think, maybe 10% of the users of Tailspire, if that. So it's the community is amazing and the creativity is absolutely incredible, and it's only kind of like through word of mouth that it's spread. But I'm very aware that had we done some more shady tactics to kind of promote the game or make it look a certain way, that we would have a lot more eyes on it. There's no such thing as bad publicity, even negative. So had there been more drama in kind of the game development, or more crazy things had happened. Oh, they took a bunch of money from a Kickstarter and then did make a game, and then suddenly there is a game, and it's like there's really shady things you can do to get people's eyes on it. And because I'm not one to do that, I think like I'm all about honesty and hey, we try to communicate everything we do with the Discord, with the community. Like every game update, we say, "Hey, this is exactly what's happened." When people give feedback, I try and like respond to every single person, um, and that can also have a bit of a kind of a mentally draining effect when people generally allow this when something happens they don't like. So you get a lot more criticism than you get positive feedback.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
you see that a lot with reviews like Yelp reviews and things like that.
mhm,
You there are overwhelmingly more negative reviews of companies than there are
yeah,
positive ones, because when something is going right, it's expected. And it's like, "Oh, okay, nothing new to see here," anything like that. And like this is going exactly how it's supposed to. Whereas something goes wrong, it's like I need to tell everybody that this is not what's actually
yeah,
happening. So yeah, I can definitely see like I can see the struggle with trying to get everything out there without anything bad actually happening. But I do have to say I've got a huge respect for not intentionally causing drama and not intentionally alienating certain people just because you wanted to get the name out there. I'm of the same mindset. I really feel like a product or a service should speak for itself. It's if somebody comes in and says, you know what, I like your product. Here's some money. Do some more bulk advertising or something like that. I think that would be fine. But like going out of your way to make promises that you can't keep. We see a lot of issues with that. We saw what was the name? I play the game. I got pissed off at the game quite a bit. Uh, No Man's Sky. When No Man's Sky
Mm.
came out, it was overpromise, under deliver, but I kind of feel like them as a company, they've kind of sort of redeemed themselves over the years, bringing everything that they promised eventually. But I definitely think that they tarnished like the company as a whole, not just the game, with those promises and lack of delivery on those promises. So I do feel like you're doing things the right way. I just really wish there was a way that we could get it out there without trying to seem pushy in a
I,
way. I
I
don't know
get
how
what I
else
get what you
how
mean.
else to say it.
I mean that does lead on to kind of when you say what's the biggest struggle with something like that. It's a question of finances generally.
Mm-hmm.
It is that if you look at any big games company or like the movie industry at the moment, everyone says like 50% of your budget is marketing. We have had no budget because we didn't do a Kickstarter.
Right.
It's just been like essentially, or not not just me. I have people who help me. Osh has been fantastic. I've got Gabe from the community who is always there to help. Adam does a lot of my marketing stuff. But we just don't really have the money to pump into adverts. And because it's such a niche game as well, how do you advertise to specifically the VTT community? Because out of gamers, there's only such a small percentage that are even in VTTs. And of those, generally, if you like a VTT, you stick with that VTT,
Mm-hmm.
right? People are very, there is no such thing as an easy VTT. They all have a learning curve, and they all take time to kind of like get to grips with, understand how to use. And all we can do as developer is make the tool as intuitive as possible for the user, so that learning curve is as like low as possible. But you know, it's still the people who play VTTs generally don't hang out on the other gaming kind of servers. Then a lot of people who play D&D or other TTRPGs, they only play those. They don't play Call of Duty at the same time. Like people who play first person shooters will play a whole handful of first person shooters that have their favorites and they'll stick to that a lot. But they're open to trying other ones. If you've got a good VTT and you've been using that for the last 2-3 years, why change?
Yep.
And also, where are you looking to get that new information that there is even a new VTT out there?
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before the interview started. You know, you mentioned how, or was it before the interview started? I have no sense of time. You were talking about how there were certain things that certain VTTs didn't have that you thought, well, we can do this, we can do that. How would you describe the RPG engine? How do you feel that it fulfills those roles, whereas the other ones don't? And what sort of roles were you talking about?
So the entire game, funnily enough, came from terrain sculpting. What I'd done as part of that asteroid game that came just before was basically I taught myself the the marching cube algorithm, which is a type of programming where you create a point cloud, and then by working out the values of each of those points, you can create shapes and meshes. That's how you can do overhanging terrain in the RPG engine. So that was me playing with an idea and going, huh, I can make terrain. Oh, why don't we populate the terrain? Oh, we have maps. Look, we've got a VTT. What really struck me as strange is why are so many of them locked to a grid? Like, why is Tailspire? And Tailspire is gorgeous. It's a very pretty game. Why is it locked to a grid? Generally, like, why are so many of the VTTs locked to D&D specifically, or locked to the fantasy genre, or we all have different like TTRPGs we play, and there's so much out there, and more is coming. The whole idea of the RPG engine for me was sharing is caring. If you make something you enjoy it, I think other people should enjoy that too. That's why very early on in development we put in the Steam Workshop. I don't want to lock anything to a set system, because if you come in and say, hey, like for example, the way I always play D&D was I had the 5e rulebook, and especially if I was GMing, I used that as a very rough guideline, but I would always reward my players for playing creatively or having funky ideas that according to the rules shouldn't really work, But whoop-de-doo. We're here to have fun as a group and to be creative and explore fun ideas that you can't do in any other video game.
And that is
Why
my
should I
favorite
restrict
part
you?
of D&D. Like
There you
just
go,
the
right?
screwing around and the
Yeah,
storytelling that you can do.
yeah,
That's my favorite part about it. But please continue.
yeah. So, what for me like has always been a real key thing about the RPG engine is it's system agnostic.
Mhm.
You have a system, you're homebrewing, you're using a hybrid system, do it. Awesome. You want to do a campaign where you start off um, in kind of the primitive era, and then over the year, like over the campaign, you're going through portals, and suddenly you're in modern day. Oh, you're in a zombie apocalypse. Oh, you're in sci-fi space. You can do anything, and like that for me is what a VTT should be. Is give everyone as much access to as much as they want with as little limitations as you can, without making it hugely overcomplicated. And that's like a really hard task, and that is like all the tweaks and stuff we do, it's all based on user feedback, where the community's come in and said, hey, you've added this feature, awesome, I don't like this part of it, or this bit could be done differently, or have you considered this? And that's how the game has developed and grown as much as it has. I mean, it's way bigger than it was ever meant to be. It was meant to be a little map builder, and then that was it. And you can do your player sheets at home personally, like, or using Foundry or in other ways. And then, as more eyes got on it, people were like, hey, why don't you do this? Why didn't you add this? You were saying before the interview, the top down 2D like image exporter,
Mhm.
that was just an off the cuff. That was someone dropped it in a comment. Someone was like, oh, why can't you like take a picture of it? And I was like, oh yeah, of course, to put a camera on
Wait,
top,
yeah, why
snapshot and
can't
done.
you?
Yeah,
That's yeah,
yeah,
duh.
yeah, yeah. That's it. There's been a lot of times where and that's something, if anyone's looking to get into game development, put a little alpha out as quick as early kind of development and get community feedback. It's been absolutely invaluable in the process of making the game, because you have all of these. But yeah, why can't you do that? Of course, you should be able to do that.
Right.
Very similarly with Hero Forge import, that was a that was a whole drama. I don't want to shit on like any other company, but when I heard that Tailspire took 6 months to bring it out after they mentioned it, kind of I think the day they brought it out, Osh and me sat down and we were like, should we quickly reverse engineer it? It took us 2 days to put Hero Forge importing into the game. That was without Hero Forge. Yeah, yeah, right. So there's things like that where it's just like, hey, there is nothing stopping us if you understand how to code and like you have a feel for it. This is why kind of I guess all this ties into like gaming. Making games is my passion, and I hope that comes across. Like I have so much fun doing this, and then yeah, with the community, they give us cool ideas, and we go, why didn't we think of that? Course, brilliant, in it goes, boom. And then by working like that with the community, we can create this bit of software. And I think that is something, to answer your question, that sets us apart from the other VTTs, is we're designed by you guys. We have the core features, and then we tweak them based on everyone's suggestions. Something that needs to go in over the next kind of half a year, cards. We had a lot of requests of like playing cards. We want to do some funky stuff, third and first person view. That'd be cool, right? And
That
that's come off people.
I
Yeah,
would love first person view to just
yeah,
walk through some of the maps that like not just I've made, but I've seen some of the maps that the community has
mm,
uploaded. The creativity that
yeah,
some of the people in the RPG Engine community have is astounding. Like cuz there was one, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a space themed one. But I saw a bunch of the fantasy medieval themed items used in a way that still made them look futuristic, which
yeah,
I didn't even consider attempting to do. So, like, the main thing that I genuinely love about the game that you and your team have created is just how free it is to use. Like you can, like, for example, recently on a previous stream, I had a thought that we could make a floating uh like a map just of floating islands, and you can set your terrain level, go in, delete everything below it, and just put a cloud layer down below, and boom, you've got floating islands. Like, it is literally limited to your creativity and what
yeah,
in your how willing you are to put in the work to get what you have out there. And with I can only imagine that's basically the exact same process when it comes to like game development in general.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah.
uh you've said you've got the tools, you've got the knowledge, you just have to sit down and do it. And I that could be literally anything in the world right now, but still, my point remains valid. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, um, so we've talked about like what got you into it, what sort of struggles you've run into. Where do you really feel? I'm gonna head this question off at the pass, sort of.
Mhm.
What sort of inspires your thought processes when it comes to like game development in general? I don't want
Mhm.
to kind of limit this to RPG Engine because I do know
Yeah.
you're working on other things behind the scenes, but like in general, what sort of pushes you to create? You know what? I really need to
I'll
write
answer.
these
Don't worry.
questions down. In
Don't worry.
general, to create, what sort of inspires you?
So this job is incredibly unique in terms of I've worked for like a variety of jobs, and this is one of the only jobs where I can say every single day I get up, I go to work, and every day is different. Every project is different. Every kind of time I create a bit of code, I now have that code and I can recreate it really quickly. I can modify it. I can do something else with it. And it's problem solving. It's actively using your brain. Like I get up every day and it's never just okay, that's a lie. Sometimes it's dull, mundane work, right? When I'm importing, a new set of say 1,000 assets into the game, I just have to go through one by one and I just have to do it. And that's what I would call intern work. But it's got to be done. It's all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this is awesome. How can I do this? Oh, how about why don't I try this?" And yeah, I just thoroughly enjoy the creativity process of it. Um, yeah, essentially, yeah. Like for me, game development is just how do you take what's in here and put it on there, and spreading joy is right. Why are we on this planet? For me, I think we're all here to have fun, and if I can give fun to other people in that process, then more power to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to take a quick second. I was pointed out by my mod Selena just now in chat. Normally during these interviews, I have the socials that you guys provided me popping up on your screen for people to check out. Unfortunately, things have been very hectic lately, and I did forget to switch that banner up for your socials. So they have been cycling through with the past guests' socials popping up. I apologize.
Okay,
Um,
check them out. I'm sure they're great.
I mean, they are pretty great. But to be fair, the socials, um, I can't edit them right now because they do take a little bit of time. But it's the RPG engine, no spaces or underscores, basically everywhere. So please go follow them on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, please.
If
Wonderful
if
people.
you want to chat to us, Discord. Discord is the best way to get
Yes.
in communication with us. And generally, just at me, just at the architect. If you need something specifically from me or have any like fun ideas, I'm about. You know.
Yeah, and they are actually a very interactive Discord as well. I've seen questions answered within 10 minutes. It's a great community. So definitely go check them out
It
as well.
really is. I mean, that is something I'd like to kind of like touch on in
Sure,
terms of like
absolutely.
development and stuff. Um, if you take away, and we're not going to talk about like the monetary side of like game dev in this stream, like we said, we'll do another one about general game
Yep.
development. Um, but just
Foreshadowing.
having, just in general, having a community, and that's something why I really like interacting with the community, and I've been like so honest, creating a space where everyone can have an opinion and can talk to, grow together as a group and a community has been just fucking incredible. Quite simply.
Yeah.
It just, that alone makes it so worth it. Where I can wake up in the morning, and the first thing generally I do is what I call admin. Is I go through the entire Discord, every message that has come overnight or since I've like last been on, and just see what's up, answer any questions. And the best part is the community showcase. If you make it to the Discord server, check out the community showcase area. Like, it
Seriously,
is crazy.
there is such cool stuff in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, yeah, it's sort of just wholesome. Like, there's never any drama in the community. It is really just a wholesome, you need help with something, post it in, someone will get to you. You need some assets made. Hit bashing is such a big part of the game. That goes back to what sets that game apart, the RPG engine part from, the others. Hit bashing. You can take 30 different props, mush them together, and make a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes from like huge mechs to like these skeletal things to entire like structures, houses, dungeons, and then share it on the workshop. And suddenly you can go from, oh, I need to quickly make a map because my players have said they're going left instead of right. What do I do? To, I'll just go on the workshop. That map will do. Download and go.
Yep.
And that's something that we're really striving for, is ease of use, because let's be honest, building maps takes time. Like, it just does. What I find when I'm making maps on the RPG engine, I get hugely carried away. So I'm like, oh, I'll just
Same.
just make a quick map, just like 10-20 minutes, and then it's like 4 hours later, I'm just like, this needs an extra bit of grass here, and I can just, if I smooth the terrain into the houses, it'll look more realistic.
Okay, but I
um
should really put a fence here. It doesn't make sense for there not to be a fence here.
exactly, right? But I find that like really therapeutic. I find that relaxing.
I do too. That's one of my favorite things to
Yeah.
do is like I never played Minecraft up until a few years ago when one of my viewers said, "If I buy it for you, will you play it?" And I said, "If you buy it, I will play it." And it's kind of the same sort of concept. It's something I can just go and do things. It's um I've there's something that we haven't really touched on when it comes to the game, and that's
Mhm.
model importing.
Yes.
So that's I've got a lot of VTuber friends. I've got
Mhm.
yeah, I don't have to say that twice. But there's if you have a model that you think really like this is my character, this is me. I want me to be in the game. You can do that in this game. Like you can upload your own models into the RPG engine and use them in your campaigns. And that I think is one of the most unique things. You've got the Hero Forge import, which is kind of sort of similar in that regard. Like you can build a character in Hero Forge and import it into the game. But Hero Forge, you can't really upload your own model to Hero Forge. You can into the RPG engine, and I think that's one of the more unique things that you don't really see in a bunch of VTTs as well.
It's interesting to me that like whenever I talk to people about like what their favorite feature is, everyone always says something I don't expect. So one of the most common responses is the character creator, which I added it because I was just like, oh, that'd be fun, not thinking too much of it. And quite frequently, it's what people enjoy the most, which got me thinking, like, obviously, right? It's all about personalizing
Right.
yourself in the game. Um, Little sneak preview of something to come that
Ooh.
oh, I don't know if anyone's heard this. So from the get-go with coding the RPG engine, we've been very kind of like particular in how we code it so that it's expandable through mods down the road. So when we like a year and a half ago coded the animation system for how Unity reads the animation tree so that you have animated entities and characters and whatever you want animated in the game, it was set up in a way that in theory, people could put in their own model into Unity with all the animations, textures, and everything. And then they could take that Unity package, drop it in the RPG engine, and it will be fully animated in game. That's something like I need to finish off, but that is something I really plan to do fairly soon because that just it opens up a whole new kind of avenue of what people can do in it. And it shouldn't be too hard. The way the kind of it works in game is it just reads your animation tree from Unity. So
Mm-hmm.
any kind of things you have there where you say, hey, you got combat underscore attack, it'll just place it into that drop down list and you can play that animation. So that will come. I can't say when because I'm a busy man, but that is something that's definitely in the works. I think that'd be really exciting. We also need to look at God. See, whenever I talk to people, I'm just like, oh, this gives me something else to do. I'm just going to quickly take some notes.
By all means, yeah.
Mesh sharing on the workshop needs to be enabled.
Got a Pixel Profiles exclusive here.
There we
Awesome.
go. Yeah. Yeah, no, mesh sharing is something we almost had working just pre-launch, and then like it was dragging a bit, and we're like, no, let's make sure everything else is polished. But mesh sharing is like on the verge of working. But that ties in with kind of our philosophy of, hey, but sharing is caring. We're not never going to do like paid DLCs on like paid like content DLCs.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have the game, you have the game, and you have everything in the game. I'm not going to add another kind of few thousand assets to be like, right now, pay for them. No, there'd be no point. Like, if we had that, there'd be no point having the workshop or custom mesh importing, because anything we put in, users could put in for free. Why would we charge them for it? That seems ridiculous.
And that
So,
is exactly why I never understood the Skyrim creation kit. Like
yeah,
literally everything's already been
yeah,
uploaded and now you're charging people for the exact same stuff that they already had in mods.
it's
Like
greedy. It's greedy. But that's like quickly touching on general game development, like as a whole, as a an industry at the moment, I think is in a really bad place.
I agree.
I look,
We actually spoke with Remulex on a previous episode. We talked about I hate when my brain does this. Apologies. We talked about like how the game area has been turned into a money making scheme, and like the
mm,
passion behind gaming and development in general is it seems to be disappearing.
yeah, it is. People see it as a get rich quick scheme.
Right.
Um, which, if you'd use certain tactics, can absolutely work. It can be very viable if you have what I would say very loose morals. Um, there's a lot of money to be made quite easily if you don't mind your entire reputation being burnt in the process.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do it properly, you need to make one hell of a game. You need to be very good at marketing, and like a lot of things need to align for that to go well. Um, and we're getting there, all in good time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Speaking. Oh,
like,
sorry. Go
well,
ahead.
I was going to say, it's for me, it's all about passion. It's just, I want to do this because I love this job more than anything else I've done, and I want to be able to continue doing this job because I can't imagine going back to a 9 to 5 job in the office. Like, I wake up every day and go, what cool thing am I going to come up with today? And it's awesome, and I want to maintain that. That's why I do this.
Yeah, I want you to too. Based if what you are coming out with in the future is half as good and half as community involved, with in regard to input. Obviously, I want you and your team to, follow your own vision for what you want to put into a game. I don't, you can't have 1,000 voices in the back of your head saying, "Hey, I want this. Hey, I want this." You can't listen to every one of them. So
We try.
obviously, I'm really excited to see where you and your team are going moving forward. But what we were talking about, model imports and model bashing. We have a question here from Bleeding Rain in chat. Will there be attribution for
What
models like hey, this model was created by so and so, like whenever you go to download them and stuff like that.
So, I mean, at the moment, it works. If you go into the workshop, in game in the workshop browser, every map has who made it next to it. Any information, like when you upload a map, you can basically say, this is a description of it, this is the size of it, this is the search tags of it, and it automatically just adds your name to that. Something that is just generally tricky with a community in general, where you let them just say, hey, share what you want, is moderation. And that
Yes.
is, how do you stop people uploading a model that was uploaded by someone else? And quite frankly, there's no easy way to do that. You can put locks in it and say, hey, if this thing was downloaded from the workshop, it has like an internal tag. That means you can't instantly re-upload it. But the moment the person like pulls the model out, puts it back in, it's now a clean model and they can do with it what they want. So far, the way it's happened is every 2-3 months, I will sit down and I will go through the workshop and I manually look at each item. And if it is a duplicate of another item, then I hide it and send the person a message. Um, it's difficult to do, right? It's yeah, yeah. It is. A lot of it relies on community trust, and so far it's worked well. That system can be abused. Imagine we were, if all goes well, at one point the size of, say, Tabletop Simulator. From everyone I've talked to, or when I've browsed their workshop, it's just a big copyright infringement. Their whole Steam workshop,
Yeah,
and there's
it
very little
kind of
you can
is.
do
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, right. It is. But it's really difficult to combat that. And then we to be kind of blunt and honest, it doesn't harm us that people are uploading things they shouldn't. The more stuff's on the workshop, the better. However, it would be nice if people didn't. Um, we put in a EULA for that, so people understand that if they upload stuff, we can delete it without any notice and stuff like that. But there's not much more we can do. It's yeah, and should there be an influx of that, then we'll look at the problem, try and tackle the problem, get some community moderators on it who then check everything that's uploaded and all that jazz. Stands, it's not been an issue. The only maps that get frequently re-uploaded are starter maps, and I don't care. I'll just go through and just hide them or delete them or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I forgot to mute that as well. So that was going to be loud in everybody's ears that were watching the stream. I apologize. We actually just got a raid from Remulex, one of our
Hey.
previous guests. So Remulex, thank you for the raid coming in. Hello, Remulex and viewers. Hello, hello. We are interviewing the architect behind the RPG engine. And we are actually just getting into the community question portion of the stream. So you're actually coming in at a pretty good time. We do have a question from one of our younger viewers that has expressed interest to me when he has shown interest in game development. So, what goes through your head when you work on the RPG engine, be it what inspired the genesis of the game or your thought process behind any updates the game may need? I guess I think let's stick away from community input because we have already have already kind of touched on that. But let's say game updates that you're sitting there thinking it's like, oh crap, we should probably add this.
So it's a good question. A lot of the time it is community driven, where as things come up, I go, oh, what's the priority on this? How important is it? So whenever I release a patch, I always take a couple of days off and just kind of go, okay, zen out, let's relax, make sure the game's stable, do any hotfix patches we need to do, and then when I get back into the development process, I have two kind of ways that I tackle it. One is, what is my internal idea of kind of things that annoy me? So I will play the game, I will make some maps, and I kind of go, this would really help if we had this, or this would really help if we had this. And to any game devs out there, if your game's you're getting a lot of negative feedback about it, sit down and play your own game. Just do any bits that annoy you will probably annoy other people as well. Fix it, right? So a lot of developments come from there. The other thing is I've got a feature request and a bug list on the Discord. So if I ever truly don't know what to do, I'll just go through that feature list and I'll just say what makes sense to add right now, what doesn't make sense to add right now, what really would benefit the players or would only benefit this one person. And I like challenging people when they say, oh, can you add this? And I go, why? How? Give me a scenario where this would be useful. And if it's a decent scenario that I can see other people using, then more than likely I'll put it in the game.
What's the biggest example of that you can think of? I guess the most impactful on the game.
I mean, I think the workshop was always going to go in, but then kind of what we share with the workshop, it was always going to be maps. And then someone suggested, I think maybe the whole prefab system might have come from a community suggestion. I know the cutout tokens they came from a streamer who was like, oh, why can't I import a 2D image and it just be a token that is like a cutout token, like a bit of cardboard. So that was community driven.
I use that frequently.
Yeah, it's a really cool little thing. Yeah,
it is.
the having player sheets, we've been we were people pestered us to do player sheets for about a year before we got around to doing it. It's a really technical kind of coding feat that is mostly Osh's baby. Like, I knew from the start the whole player sheet system I didn't want to do. And then Osh kind of like came through and was just like, okay, let's sit down, let's tackle it together. We procrastinated so hard on the player sheet system. We redesigned the entire UI structure of our game and how it works internally. And then once we had that sorted, we were like, okay, we've now made the player sheet system a lot easier and it will run on the same structure. Yeah, but if we go away from like the community input, how I just kind of decide the next patches, I just make shit up. I sit there and go, what would be really fun in this game? And for example, first and third person view was just like we had a fly camera where if you hit F3, you can change it from your normal like mouse drag camera to a first person no clip camera. And I was like doing some recording for a trailer or something where I was flying through a town and I was just like, why can't we just walk a character around like this? And then other people had like the community had asked for a third person camera and stuff like that. So yeah, I make stuff up because it's my job, a game designer.
Yeah,
I just design what would be fun.
literally the whole deal is like making it. Like,
That's it.
yeah.
That is it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky question. It depends on the game you're making.
Hmm.
It depends in general on the scope of your game. Feature creep is a huge thing. But yeah, we'll get to all of that. It's a lot of techie stuff we'll get into in an actual dev interview in
Right.
general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think this question would probably be better suited for that, but I just want to get it out there so he doesn't think I'm ignoring him. Do you have any game dev pet peeves?
It's a good one.
It's kind of a
Yes,
fun question. Kind of a fun question.
I do. And I've still got some community members watching right now who have been prone to this, and I'm sorry, don't be mad, guys. If someone asks me to add something, and then they ask me again to add the same thing, and then they ask me again to add the same thing, like generally, if they've asked me to do something, I've understood. And again, like, don't get me wrong, the occasional bump is nice. But if someone's like in the same like span of a week asked me 3 times to add a certain thing, it makes me not want to add it. I will add it because it's probably a good idea, but whoa, just assume that I've listened to you and I will get to it. Um, that's yeah, that's one of the biggest pet peeves is trying to be a really open developer and then people kind of hammering on at you for because they know you're an open developer. They
Right.
kind of expect you to be a really open developer, and it's like, well, hang on a second. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
so that's a bit of a pet peeve.
it's kind of almost taking advantage of the kindness. It's like
Yeah.
cuz you can't tell him it's just like, "Oh my god, piss off." But
Mm.
like, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely understand how that would be a major pet peeve. Um
That actually that is also a big pet peeve. I have to be nice.
yep.
And there's some situations where people are like, it's feedback is feedback, but there's nice ways and nasty ways of formulating it. And if someone starts the sentence with, "Oh, this is rubbish. It should be like this," that makes me want to say not nice things back because we're all human. And if someone's going to disrespect me, I want to be petty and disrespect them back, but I can't
Yep.
because that's not the image. That's not who we are as a company. And I've got to put that side of me aside and go, you know what? Everyone comes from different backgrounds, different cultures, and the way they're talking to me isn't what I'm used to, but it might be just how they are. And I can't assume that they're being nasty. I can only assume that they are giving me feedback, which is what they're doing. And that can be very challenging at times. But I do have some community members who hop on that and go, maybe we should reword that, which is really nice. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There was a question that was asked a little while back. So it's literally just mods question mark. Um how about modding and API? So I'm guessing let's see. So
Okay, so
I
mods
know you.
question mark really quickly because I know who that is. That's my dad who's watching from the other room.
Hi
And
dad.
basically, he is asking about the patch that is in experimental that'll be out this week. We're introducing an API to the game, and that will be the next big step of like moving towards modding the game because obviously all good games that have long life are held together by the community. If a game does not have modding, it has a lifetime, because unless you're prepared to continuously develop this thing to the end of time, it's going to die. Modding allows the community to continue developing for you to allow you to do other things. We've created an API, and by we I mean Osh. Osh has created an API, and I've been importing assets. So we've got like 650 new assets and an API coming out this week, which is fun. And the API allows you to do things like hook Foundry into the RPG engine. So you can now have your Foundry sheets, which will work via the in-game browser in the RPG engine. You can do rolls on that, and it will physically roll your dice in the game, and then put the results back to Foundry if you like. That API also allows you to do things like spawn stuff, move stuff. So for the tech heads among you, it opens up a whole world where basically this is the start of modding, but we're going to go way further. But this is the beginning. We're starting nice and simple and easy. That answers the modding
That's
question.
exciting.
Yeah.
That's actually a really exciting uh, addition. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
have
Overmind.
another question here in the Discord from Rimulex as well. What was the hardest thing to add into the game, and are there any features in the game that started out as an unintentional bug?
Cool. No unintentional bugs that I can remember. Nothing that stands out to me. Um, there are certain things that are incredibly hard to do. Terrain smoothing, it's not in yet. I can show videos of why it's not in yet. But there's a constant battle between optimization and kind of making a thing work. Yeah, making a thing work. Because of my experience in gaming, I am one for, hey, especially VTTs, everyone should be able to play them. You shouldn't be hardware locked. You shouldn't need the latest graphics card to play a VTT with your friends.
That's why I love
Especially
potato mode.
potato mode.
Yes.
Exactly. One of the first things that came in was just to allow you to, like, I've got a little 2010 Mac Mini I bought specifically to build the RPG engine. That's all it does. It lives in the corner of my room and it just gathers dust and builds the game. But it
Perfect.
runs on that just about, and that's like, what it needs to do. Sorry, but the question was actually, anything come from any bugs? No. No bugs suddenly turned into features. Everything has been very much by design. Um, and the hardest thing, player sheets, absolute nightmare. They're still a nightmare. They were, well, actually, I think they're pretty stable right now. But after we put them in, it took about 6 months for us to kink out most of the bugs. Um, because it was just technically, it's just a really, really challenging thing. Um, yeah, I think hands down that's been the hardest thing. So just quick side note about my background. I did my as my bachelor thesis for my university when I finished there. I did optimization of game development through code, and that allows us to do a very large amount of work in a very short amount of time for a lot of things. That is why we have so many assets in the game. We've just, like, in the patch that's coming out, we're going to hit over 10,000 in total assets in the game. Which, it makes it very hard for other companies like Tailspire to keep up with. They custom make all their models. We get an asset pack in an art style that fits the art style of the game, and we can just drop entire, like, packs by the thousand in there. And it's just certain things like that that make game development way easier. Work smart, not hard. I mean, work
Mm-hmm.
smart and hard, but work smart will make your life 1,000 times easier.
Nice. Okay, let's see. From the Twitch chat from Overmind, how do you determine what suggestions to listen to from community feedback and what suggestions to ignore?
That's a good question. I use my brain. Quite
I
frankly,
take a
I
second,
sit
I
there.
sit down, and I think, is this a stupid idea?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and I am pretty quick with those decisions. It's one of those where just the RPG engine's been my baby for the last like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know the game inside out. I know exactly what you can and can't do, and it's oftentimes I see people building in a way where I'm just like, you could actually do that a lot quicker if you knew about all these shortcuts that are there, but you don't. So that's bad on me for not making it more obvious. Um, but like, if someone comes up with an idea and says, "Oh, this should be in," then I remember, I had a handful of community members half a year ago tell me to change it to the new system because it was that old system that you're now asking for. I'm not going to change it back. There was a reason for me to make those choices. Generally, I'm very fluid with kind of my ideas on what's going in, what's not going in. Every time I look through like the feature suggestions, I look at all of them again. I very rarely like have a feature suggestion which I'm like, this flat out isn't happening. And if I do, I'll let the person know as well. I'll type straight away and be like, this isn't happening for this reason. Everything that I see as this would benefit other users in the game, it'll go in. It's just a matter of time and resources. What I need is a bigger team, and then we could do a lot more. But it's more a question of priority, so much of a question of if it's going in or not. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna say last question here. All right, so I'm gonna kind of sort of modify it a little bit because we did touch on the latter part of the question, so I'm gonna cut out part of the question that Rim has asked. Let's see. How would I word this? It's your game. It's your baby. What is your favorite part of your baby?
It's a wonderful question. I like building stuff. I guess that ties into, I was a 3D artist before I was a coder. I built this game to make building stuff fun. And that's why the building side of the game, I feel, is a little bit more polished than the playing side of the game. Is because first and foremost, I like sitting down and just plonking stuff onto the world and just seeing what I come up with. It's a form of therapy. It's a form of relaxation. Call it meditation. Call it what you want.
Meditation
I
is a
like
great word for it. Yeah.
I like making little worlds. Yeah.
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 All right. Eustace, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. This was probably one of my favorite conversations I've had so far. It's definitely sort of outside of my realm. Usually I sit down with live streamers, content creators. You're obviously still a content creator. You are creating content, duh.
Yeah.
But, it's really cool to see, sit down and talk about kind of the more overlooked side of like the gaming live streaming sphere that a lot of people don't really think about. A lot of people see a game, they're like, all right, let's play the game. They don't really think about what all went into making it. So I can't wait to have you back on so we can actually have more of a discussion about like the actual technical aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think that'll actually help. I've got a few viewers that are actually really wanting to get into the game dev sphere, so I think that'll actually help them out a lot as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, definitely check out the RPG Engine on Steam. The team, it's tell your friends because it's genuinely one of my favorite map builder games. And definitely be sure to check them out on all their socials at TheRPGEngine, basically everywhere. No spaces. Be sure to join their Discord as well. If you could give one quick synopsis of your game and why people should choose your game over other VTTs, what would it be?
You can do anything. Simply that. You can, where there are restrictions in system, or there are restrictions in building or sharing or creativity, we aim to get rid of all of those and just say, do what you love, make what you want, tell your story.
All right. Again, thank you for coming. Everybody at home, thank you for watching, and I can't wait to talk again. Yeah. So have a great night, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.